Hi there, I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I offer this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit, and for the soul. It's titled, Choose Life, Whatever Path You Follow. I woke up on Monday to two beautiful emails from the daughters of Alan Hardman, whose ashes have been scattered in the Garden of Remembrance here, the chapel gardens at Altrincham. Done that little service after the Sunday service the day before. Just simple emails of thanks. They didn't have to do so, but it was rather touching that they decided to do that. They made that decision, that choice. They chose that path to follow. I stepped into the day, began my journey for the week with thoughts for that day and the week ahead. I could have chosen to go straight back into work that morning, but instead, actually, I chose friendship. Some of which could have been named pastoral work, perhaps, I don't know, but I chose friendship. There were things I had to do with friendship that day. Taking Molly for a walk, I went to see Helen Redhead. That's her mum. She was a member of the congregation. I suppose she still is officially, but doesn't live in the area anymore. She was in Manchester, staying at her mum's because she was competing in a powerlifting championship. Her trainer Jason was there, who's a larger than life character in every sense of the phrase. Helen had recently taken the courageous decision, I think you would say, to start a new life in Kent in order to primarily pursue her sport of powerlifting. She'd been in Manchester competing in the British Powerlifting Union Championship and had actually won her age group, setting 2 British records along the way. Helen had followed her bliss. She'd taken the courageous step to try something new in life. Yes, it had in some ways been birthed in tragedy following the death of dear Andrea, but she'd chosen to go down a different road, and it was wonderful to see her choosing life. I was glad I was able to celebrate with her. And she's going to be back on the 18th of July to compete again in Manchester, and I plan to go along and cheer her on. I didn't stay too long, as I had to get home. I had to take Molly for a proper walk this time, do some work before heading off, sadly, to Stockport Cemetery to attend the funeral of another friend, John, who had tragically died recently. It was a moving, but it was a deeply sad service. I saw many friends who I had known over the years and remembered times that we'd shared together. One thing I have noticed about myself is that I'm quite quiet at funerals that I'm not involved in, that I'm not participating or leading really. I can be very, very quiet amongst people. I think some people take this the wrong way, but really it's just a mark of respect. I don't want to be noticed almost, just to be quiet and present. Sometimes, but some people think I'm too quiet and they find that strange. It's just the way I am. As I was driving home, I remembered something that I used to say to John when he was going through a bad time following the end of a relationship. I said to him to not see it as an end, but as a new possibility, that all bets are open. Not all bets are off, but all bets are open. Who knows where this may lead? And I know it helped him at the time, and he would often say back to me over the years, all bets are open, all bets are open. Yes, all things are possible. There is always time to change, although sadly this is no longer the case for John. Now, my friends Martin and Jade weren't working on Monday and had taken Molly. They'd offered to take Molly for a few hours while I was at the funeral. So I got back and I was just changing. I was about to go and collect her when my phone rang. Well, actually, my phone rang 3 times before I could go and collect her. But it was the first phone call I just want to talk about here. It was from a young man, a man of a similar age and similar crossroads to John when I first met John all those years ago. The young man was suffering with fear and uncertainty, unsure about life, unsure about himself, unsure about which direction to go in. Either one, all seemed too frightening for him. I listened for a while, and then I told him about John. and I told him all about all bets are open, that he was free to choose whatever direction he wished. I also told him that whatever choice he made, mistakes would happen, things would go wrong, there may even be disasters along the way, but that this was okay and that he would be okay provided he could learn from the mistakes. He was about to go on holiday actually with his partner and their family, 2 weeks going to Italy and then off with them, and that he would be returning to begin his next journey. And it sounded quite exciting to me, but he had trepidation. I told him to enjoy himself, and then I thought I'd quote good old Moses at you. Always good. There's always a good place for Moses at such times. I said to him, choose life. Not George Michael and the people from Wham or those guys from Train Spotting. No, this is the original Choose Life from good old Moses. And that line, that sentence from Deuteronomy 30, verse 19. Here it is. I call heaven and earth to witness against you today that I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Choose life so that you and your descendants may live. Choose life so that you and your descendants may live. Not an easy journey, but it's where life is. Conversation continued, and I'd moved outside into the gardens at the chapel by this time, near where the ashes had been scattered. And I was stood by our wind telephone, that monument to grief, really. I was going to sit there for a bit and be quiet before going to pick Molly up. I needed time to be still and quiet. I was thinking about a few souls that have been lost in recent times, my own grief. I was stood in front of the wind telephone now and was looking directly at it while I was talking to this young man. And then I noticed something that broke my heart. The phone wasn't there. Someone had ripped it from its bracket. This has happened once before, actually. This time, though, they had not only ripped it off, damaged it. They'd taken the phone, that old full style dial telephone. They'd taken it away. I finished my phone call, and then I just sat down and I wept actually for a while. I always seem to do that when I'm on my own, physically at least. And then I took a picture and I shared about what had happened on social media, sharing with my friends before I went to collect Molly. I stayed at Jade and Martin's for a while and had tea and chocolate hobnobs, and then I went for a walk with Molly. When I returned, I looked at my phone, I checked out social media, and my goodness, I was overwhelmed by the loving responses from so many people. So much loving support and some anger, but mostly love. By the end of the evening, different friends had gone to extra lengths, it seems. 3 new versions of this specific phone that could be, stuck on a wall with the receiver on top. They're not easy to find, the kind of things you would find in a building, I guess, a public building in the past. But 3 new versions of the exact same phone had been ordered. 2 have already been delivered to the different friends that have sought them out and found them. So a replacement will be fitted in the next few days. As there will be 3 of them, there'll be 2 spares if this sad event was to happen again. Friends are going to fit one phone very soon. The wind telephone means so much to so many people in this community, as do the gardens at the chapel, and as do I myself. I know how much I'm loved, how much that touches my heart, how much people care. So many people, of course, have sat in this space here. I've felt comforted and held and loved in this space. They've connected and been able to connect to those that they have lost, those deep ties, the grief bereavement, that deep, deep love that is grief. They've been held and felt that they could experience, and wept themselves, no doubt, and talked, however through however lines of communication there are. And it seems that soon the lines will be open again, although they always are. You don't need a telephone, really. I know that. But it's symbolic of something very beautiful and powerful. I went to bed that night touched by so many people that I know, by their loving care, by their friendship, touched by how people will go out of their way at times, touched by how in general people choose to make loving decisions, decisions that are primarily about life, actually. I also smile as I found I had done the same thing myself that day. I had chosen life in all its joy and suffering, in all its blessings and curses. And I also thought of dear John and those words, all bets are open. Now, of course, it seems like a bit of a no-brainer that we would always choose life, surely. Who wouldn't choose life? Well, sometimes we do choose to stay in fear and avoid life. Might not always be aware we're doing that, by the way. Whenever we turn from our God-given gifts or fail to live authentically, I suspect that's when we refuse life. But we shouldn't give ourselves too much of a hard time about this, as we can always turn back to life again. We can turn back down that path of life any time. No one lives perfectly without ever being held back by fear. Everybody does at times. And we can change direction, we can turn back. Every day there'll be some decisions you make based on fear, not on love and life. To choose life is to accept life in all its joys and all its troubles. At John's funeral, there were many people who have courageously come through some difficult challenges in recent times, people I know well. Two who have recently come through some severe, life-threatening forms of cancer. They thought their time was up, but they're still with us. They carry their scars, both physical and emotional. But they were there. They were there with their friends, with their loved ones, giving their respect to a dear lost friend. They were choosing life in every sense. One asked me actually if I was going to the wake afterwards. I said I was not. And to be honest, I prefer not to usually. I do so, of course, when it's necessary, but often I do not. They said they were going, but primarily they were going to ensure that John's ex-partner was okay. Another beautiful decision based on love, based on care, despite their own suffering. Choosing or refusing life is a decision that we all make. It is not always obvious which one to take, in life. Fear in its many forms can often paralyze us in our decision making, so much so that we make no decision and thus do not choose life at all. Making no decision is not choosing life. Like the young man I was talking to on Monday, there is a fear that we could get it wrong, that all bets are not actually open. In actual fact, all bets are closed. And this brought to my mind an often misunderstood and misquoted and even mistitled classic poem. The poem being The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. I'm going to share it with you now. The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveller. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim because it was grassy and wanted where, though as for that the passing there had worn them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Why mark the first for another day? Yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less travelled by, and that has made all the difference. Now, it may not sound like it, but actually it seems that this poem is actually a gentle satire on indecisiveness. It's not actually, primarily at least, a celebration of rugged individualism and courageously striding on without fear. Many people believe it was written for that. In fact, it's been used in adverts and inspirational things for decades, really. But really, it's not what wasn't Frost's intention when he wrote the poem. And that's probably why it's really truly an everyman poem, as I'm sure we can all relate to this fear and indecisiveness when faced with such decisions. Which way should we go? We all feel it. We all feel indecisive. Frost himself said of the poem, I wasn't thinking about myself here, there, but about a friend who had gone off to war, a person who, whichever road he went, would be sorry he didn't go the other. He was hard on himself that way. And the friend was Edward Thomas, who Frost had sent the poem to privately in a small sealed envelope under the title Two Roads. Frost had been inspired to write the poem by Thomas's habit of regretting whatever path the pair took during their long walks in the countryside. Thomas would torture himself over the decisions to turn one way or the other, or not at all. And Frost equated this indecisiveness with the romantic predisposition for crying over what might have been. He understood that we all feel these feelings, this fear, that we don't always choose life, and that we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves for not always choosing life. He believed that his friend would take the poem actually when he sent it as a kind of gentle little ribbing joke like friends do, and would respond and protest against Frost's very teasing. But it seems it didn't get the joke for quite some time. And actually, in the end, Frost had to direct him back to the point he was trying to make. And then I suppose they laughed. And then the poem took on its own life and means different things now, perhaps, than it originally meant to me. I don't think people see it as a joke anyway. Now, whatever path we choose in life, the path will not be smooth. It will be full of challenges. It will be full of life. And if we find it's not the right move that we make, we can always change direction, in life. It's okay to give up sometimes. It's okay to start all over again. Yeah. To pick yourself up, to dust yourself down, to start all over again. And when we start all over again, we choose life. Life will knock us out sometimes, knock us off our feet. Everything will seemingly go along, but we can turn back to life again. We can choose life. There will always be some indecision in life. There will be fear in life. We'll make decisions. We'll get them wrong, sometimes based on fear. Sometimes just because out of ignorance, really. We're going to get stuff wrong. Every day, actually, I say or do something, or fail to say or do something that I should have. I reflect each evening on my day. I don't beat myself up with the reflection, but I prayerfully look through my day, see what I could have done better, and also see what I've done well. Fear doesn't cause paralysis in the way that it used to in my life. Every day we have to make decisions about little things and sometimes monumental things. And when we make these decisions, we're choosing life. But to choose life requires discernment. That's why I spend time each evening looking at my day and throughout my day, actually, watching myself and my day, whilst also living, not detached, connected, actually, like the opposite of detachment. Discernment is formed from the Latin word discernere, by the way, which meant to separate, to distinguish, to sort out. That's what I do as I reflect of an evening. Just think, when you think of discernment, what it originally meant, it's a bit like prospectors panning for gold or sifting through rocks and dirt in search of gemstones. They are separating, they are sorting through the muck so they can find the jewels of life, to find gold and not fool's gold. They are distinguishing, they are discerning. And discernment to me is all about choosing life. Discernment is the key to making those wise choices in life. We need to discover what is of value and what needs to be discarded from our minds and our lives, really. We need to discard the dirt and the muck to uncover the gold and the gems in order to have clarity of thought so that we can choose life. But this is not easy, especially when we think of all that whirls around, all that information coming into our lives that causes, that affects our consciousness, that causes indecision and fear. We have too much information in this world, too much hitting our senses, sensory overload actually. And it's just swimming around in our consciousness like an enormous shoal of fish in a small fish tank, just going round and round in circles, not going anywhere, on a road to nowhere, or a sea. It's not a sea, it's just a tank. Our lives, our heads are just so full of stuff. How do we discern what is healthy, what is right for us and for others? So how do we do that? Well, we need to sometimes take a step away, to be still, to be silent, as I do each morning and evening, and sometimes at other times during the day. We need time to be away from all this information, all these things that pull us in so many directions, all those things that hit, the sensory overload. We need time to be still. We need time to be silent. We need time to connect to our bodies, to our breathing, to our breath, to that breath of life that connects all life. Time to hear that still, small voice of calm, a voice that is less than a whisper, but somehow more than silence. The voice of love, the voice of life, the voice that overcomes fear, the voice of God within, the sound of silence. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to speak with you again. We need to awaken to our true consciousness in order to make those sane and sensible decisions about life, in order to choose life. We need to learn to separate those things that are of value and those that are not. We need to do this in order to hear that still small voice that is less than a whisper and somehow more than silence. The voice that has spoken down the centuries to those that had ears to hear it. The voice that spoke to the people of Israel and said, I have set before you life and death, a blessing and a curse. Therefore, choose life. For the choices that we make matter. It matters what we are and it matters what we do. I don't think that God chooses this for us. I don't believe that. God offers guidance, the lure of divine love. But it's up to us to choose the path that we follow. It's up to us, remembering always, of course, that we can always change direction. There is not one direction. We can change direction if we find that the road that we are on is not the road of life. If it's a road to nowhere, if you like. So let's choose life. Let's choose life by choosing the road in front of us, the road of love and the road that will bless all of our lives. It won't be pain-free. There will be joy, but there will also be suffering. But above all, there will be life. So choose life. Amen. And I'm going to end with some final words of blessing. You know, we need to bless more, and we can all bless. Does not take special people. We're all sacred people. We bless by giving ourselves wholeheartedly to life. So, may the love that overcomes all differences, that heals all wounds, that puts to flight all fears, that reconciles all who are separated, may that love be in us and among us now and always. And may that love of God go with us, and may it do so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, in all that we do. Choose life.